بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. دلویا بخون کی جیختن پنامه نن مکت دیویار زایده جناب کامرون دی برطانیه صدر اعظم مکسر حضور داری. Welcome, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you.
Thank you.
دی دوی پمشری او دی برطانیه دی پخوانی دولتو پمشری ایموک دوست افغانستان تا لویم راستی کری او نن هم دوی موک سر داری دلی دی چه راتلون کی دی پاره هم پا امنیتی برخی که او هم اقتصادی برخی که خپل اړیکې افغانستان سره لا زیاتره تینگ کړي. امروز در روز تاریخی قرار داریم چون جزء پروگرام کاری جناب صدر اعظم ایست که با اساکر انگلستان که در هلمند قربانی ها دادن و قول اردوی ما را تقویه کردن خداحافظی کنن. ما از همکاری های همه جانبه از اینا ابراز امتنان میکنیم و امید داریم که خانواده های اساکر از اینا که منتظر از این روز بودن از این روز استقبال کنند. انگلستان در حالت ماموریت خود را در ظرف امسال تکمیل میکنه که به فضل خداوند متعال قوای امنیتی ما کفایت کافی را به دست آوردن تا وظیفه و واجبه ملی خود را که دفاع از حاکمیت ملی و حفظ امنیت تمام مردم افغانستان است و موفقیت انجام بدن. ما به وزیر صاحب دفاع، وزیر صاحب داخله، رئیس به امنیت ملی و تمام اراکین دیگه ما تبریکی میتونم که انتخابات افغانستان با موفقیت انجام داد. و در عین حال با وجودی که استعمال قوه در افغانستان به ختم میرسه، قوه بین‌المللی موافقه امنیتی را که ما با ناتو انجام دادیم موجب از این میشه که در تعلیم، تجهیز و تمویل قوای افغانستان دولت‌های دوست ما نقش بزرگ داشته باشند و از اطمینان جناب صدر اعظم در این بخش ابراز امتنان میکنم. مناسبات ما با جامعه بین‌المللی بر اساس منافع مشترک ملی ما و اینا صورت میگیره. بنابراین یک تهداب مستحکم همه جانبه وجود داره تا در مقابل خطراتی که هم دنیا و هم افغانستان برش وجود داره با هم به صورت اساسی و وسط مدت و دراز مدت فکر مشترک داشته باشیم و در عمل همکاری را توسعه بدیم. ما حکومت ملی افغانستان، وحدت ملی افغانستان مصمم هستیم که اصلاحات همه جانبه را در امور اقتصادی، حکومتداری، امنیتی و عدلی و قضایی خود انجام بدیم. اقدام اول ما در موضوع کابل بانک باید نمونه از این باشه که اراده سیاسی واضح وجود داره تا خود افغانا اصلاحات لازمه را به اساس اراده خود انجام بدیم و جامعه بین‌المللی همراه ما به حیث ممد در این اصلاحات قدم بگذاره. او دا انشاءالله تعالی کیگی مخصوصاً د انګلستان حکومت د دفت پروګرام له ټولو نه په مخ کې هغه پروګرام و چې په دې نتیجه ورسید چې مرستې د بودیجې له لارې نه مؤثرترین لاره د مرستې دي او موږ د دفت له مرستو نه په دې 14 کالو کې مننه کوو ځکه دوی هدف دا و چې په واقعي توګه افغانستان کې ظرفیت ظرفیتونه ایجاد سی اما به مخلار سو در این بخش کنفرانس لندن که جناب صدر اعظم سے مشترکن با ما نقش میزبانیش به عهده خود دارن یک قدم بزرگ است که مناسبات اقتصادی افغانستان با دنیا بر تهداب اساسی و منطقی و وسط مدت آینده گذاشته شد. ما تا او زمان انشالله تعالی اصلاحات را انجام خواهد داده باشیم که بر دنیا ثابت شود که افغانا اصلاحات خود ما میخواهیم و حاضر به اجرای اصلاحات همگان است. اما در عین حال ضرورت کمک ها برای مردم افغانستان وجود داره و از نقش پیش قدم جناب صدر اعظم و دولتشان در این بخش امتنان میکنیم که اولین کنفرانس بین المللی پلان شده را بر تقویت مردم و دولت افغانستان انجام میدن. صلح یک خواسته بزرگ مردم افغانستان است. موږ له وینې نه ستړي یو. د هر افغان ځان باید قدر ولري او دا معنا دا ده چې باید سوله جدي ونیسو او سوله ملي مسله نه ده، په عین حال کې بین المللي مسله ده. او دې برخې کې د انګلستان دولت او شخصا جناب صدر اعظم ډېرې هلې ځلې کړي. دوی له هلو ځلو نه موږ ممنون یو او غواړو چې دوی خپل کوښښونو ته دوام ورکړي، ځکه سوله یوازې په یو مملکت کې راتلی نسی، ثبات په یو مملکت کې نسی راتلی. ثبات او سوله دې ته ضرورت لري چې یو منطقوي چوکاټ یې چې د بین المللي لویو قوتو لخوا ورسره مرسته وسي او زمینه دې ته برابره سي چې پایدار سولې ته ورسیږو. انشالله تعالی موږ ملي هدف چې پایدار سوله ده دوی په مرستو به اجرا سي او دې برخې کې له هغو تاریخي اړیکو نه چې دوی جنوبي آسیا سره په عام توګه او موږ ګاونډي پاکستان سره په خاص توګه لري موږ استقبال کوو او غواړو چې ټول په مخه لاړ سو. بیا هم په آخر کې زه غواړم چې له دوی نه له هغه مرستو نه چې نه یوازې د خپل د عسکرو په لیږلو کړي دي، اما موږ د بنسټي امنیتي بنسټونو د تقویې دپاره یې کړي، مننه وکړو. اکادمی امنیتی ما در قرغه مخصوصا بخشی که امرای سندهرست ارتباط مستقیم داره امروز در منطقه بی‌نظیر است و تقویه از این نهاد زمینه عظیم فراهم میکنه که افسرای ما در آینده نه تنها مسلکی باشند بلکه با یک دید استراتژیک قوی و همه جانبه اوضاع امنیتی این مملکت از زیر کنترل بگیرن. در عین حال قطعات خاصی که است برای وزارت محترم داخله به همکاری شما با وجود آمده ظرفیت هاییست که برای ثبات از این مملکت، برای جلوگیری از جرایم سازمان داده نقش نهایت حیاتی را ایفا میکنند. جناب صدر اعظم انگلستان نه تنها به حیث یک زعیم بین المللی در عرصه بین المللی حضور دارند، علاقه از اینا به افغانستان فضل خداوند علاقه شخصی است. 13 بار به افغانستان تشریف آوردن. We welcome you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you.
We hope that the 14th would be even luckier.
Thank you.
And we are delighted that you're with us. And may I ask you to address the press.
Thank you. Well, thank you, President Ghani, for those generous words and for the warm welcome here today. It is great to be back in Kabul, especially in such a momentous week in the history of Afghanistan. We've seen the first democratic transfer of power in this country's history, and we've witnessed the signature of agreements with the United States and NATO that will enable the international community to continue to support the Afghan National Security Forces. Both events, I believe, demonstrate the progress that this country has made in recent years. The people of Afghanistan deserve an effective and legitimate government that will build a better future for them and their families. And I want to pay tribute to President Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah for the courage and determination that they have shown in the formation of this national unity government. They have put the hopes of millions of Afghans who have braved insecurity and threats to vote in April and June, they've put their interests first. They have put partnership ahead of personal ambition for individual power. And I look forward to working with both of you in the years ahead. We all share a common goal, which is a more secure, stable, and prosperous Afghanistan. We want an Afghanistan that is no longer a safe haven for terrorists or a threat to the security of either of our countries. And today, we've discussed how we can keep working together to achieve those goals. First, security. Afghan forces are now responsible in every province and every city for keeping Afghanistan's people safe. It is striking how far they have come. In 2001, there were no Afghan security forces. Now there are 4 Afghan army brigades in Helmand province alone. And across the country, more than 340,000 Afghan troops and police are leading 99% of all operations and carrying out over 90% of their own training. These are capable, determined forces. They secured 2 rounds of elections so that people across Afghanistan could vote. And this year again, Afghan forces have proved to the Taliban that their aims will not be achieved through violence and intimidation. If the Taliban want to secure a role in the future of Afghanistan, then they must accept they have to give up violence and engage in the political process. That is the way to have a voice in this democratic country. I'm immensely proud of the role that British troops have played in this transformation, making this country more secure, defeating the terrorist threat, and training Afghan forces. We are now down to 1 British base, Camp Bastion, and in just 3 months, all British combat troops will be home. That meets the commitment that I made in July 2010, that we would bring our combat troops home by the end of this year. But let me be clear, we will continue to support the development of the Afghan forces through our leading role at the Afghan National Officer Academy here in Kabul. Almost 250 Afghan officers have now graduated from Karga, and we will expand our contribution next year, providing 74 mentors who will support the Afghans in training more than 1,100 students, including 90 women. We are not just helping to build a more secure country, we want to help build a more prosperous one too. We will provide £178 million a year until 2017 to sustain the major progress which Afghanistan has made over the last decade in areas such as education, health and services. And in November, President Ghani and I will co-host the London Conference on Afghanistan to secure continued support from the international community for Afghanistan's development. We will bring together all our partners to assist this national unity government as they embark on vital reforms to revitalize Afghanistan's economy. Now, Britain has paid a heavy price for helping to bring stability to this country. But this is where Al-Qaeda trained their terrorists. This is where 9/11 and countless other plots were hatched. And Afghanistan, free from Al-Qaeda, is in our national interests as well as Afghanistan's. And now, 13 long years later, Afghanistan can and must deliver its own security. The work of defeating Islamist extremist terror goes on elsewhere. And because this threatens us at home, we must continue to play our part. Afghanistan is a country transformed since my first visit. Together, we've made Afghanistan safer, and we've made Britain safer. Of course, the new government of national unity faces many challenges ahead, but President Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah have already shown the leadership that will be necessary to build a better Afghanistan. And in Britain, you will always have a strong partner and a good friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prime Minister, first to you. We were told, the British public, when British troops left Iraq, that the country was being left in a stable condition, and yet again British troops are fighting over Iraq. What guarantees can you give that Afghanistan will not become the new Iraq? President, what do you say to the British families of those soldiers who lost their lives fighting for the security of your country? Can you assure them that they didn't die in vain?
Mr. Prime Minister first.
Well, thank you. Look, I think we have been very clear about what we've been trying to achieve in Afghanistan, and that is to build an Afghanistan that is capable of looking after its own security without the need for a large number of foreign troops. And I think you can see in an Afghan army now of 340,000 that is responsible for security across the country, that it is capable of delivering that security. But as Ban Ki-moon, I think, put it so well, a missile might kill a terrorist, but it is good governance that kills terrorism. The real and pressing need is for this new national unity government to bring the country together in a way that can deliver non-corrupt, good governance to the whole of Afghanistan, and indeed offer a path into taking part in politics to all those who want to give up violence. That, I think, is the best way to secure this country's future and to make sure people can enjoy peace and prosperity rather than conflict. And I make another point, which is, yes, we are bringing home all our combat troops as we said we would, but we're not leaving this country alone. We are going to be, Britain specifically, training the officers which will form the backbone of the Afghan National Army. Our aid program, together with other countries' aid programs, will help to deliver some of the economic reforms and development that is needed. The spirit at the NATO conference, which I hosted in Wales, was that all of the countries that have given so much to Afghanistan are committed to go on paying for their element of these security forces and go on remaining engaged with Afghanistan as it charts its course in the years ahead. Now, of course, this is a difficult, unstable, dangerous world, but I think in well-trained Afghan security forces, in a national unity government, and in continued engagement by Britain and the rest of the international community with this country, we can make sure that it doesn't become again the haven for terrorism, which is why we came here in the first place.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to those families for the loss of their loved ones. They stood shoulder to shoulder to us, and we will remember them. But remember, what brought us together at first was tragedy. 9/11 was followed by attacks on London. Your presence here has meant that London has been safe, as well as the rest of the world. We face joint threats. There cannot be Fortress Europe or Fortress America. We live, whether we like it or dislike it, in an integrated world where global forces, both for good and for evil, coexist. We in Afghanistan are suffering from the ugly side of globalization, whether it's drugs, or whether it's criminal networks, or whether it's networks of extremism. But first of all, the people of Afghanistan during this election, I think, paid tribute to all those people who sacrificed their lives. We have managed a first, which is really rare in the Muslim world, a democratic transfer of authority, not power. Power has been seized many times in this country. Today, I'm here because of the will of the Afghan public. Second, our political class showed maturity. We did not adhere to a formula of winner take all. We came together because political unity is essential to solve the problems of Afghanistan. Defending Afghanistan's sovereignty and the honor and dignity of every Afghan is our duty. And because we are accountable to the public that no longer is a silent majority, the public is going to hold us accountable. So the good news, what the British public, the American public, the public in all our partner countries, Japan, European Union, everywhere else, Canada, expects is the same that what the Afghan public expects. A functioning government, a government dedicated to the well-being of every Afghan. Is the journey hard? Certainly. But is the goal worth every sacrifice that we can make? Absolutely. And I hope that by setting an example, that we have the political will to tackle our ills and only ask the international community to support those efforts that we own and are committed to, I think stability will come to this. And our greatest enemy is poverty. Unless and until we tackle the fundamental poverty of this country and transform our natural wealth to financial and social wealth, we will not be able to succeed. So let me again thank those families for the loss of their loved ones. Let me thank also every soldier and civilian who was injured in Afghanistan and have left pieces of their body here, but have memories, some of them haunting memories. But I hope that they will also remember the good heart of the Afghans, that we are able to reach to each other. We will build civil society to civil society, people to people, media to media, and government to government relationship, so that the deepening of broadening of the partnership after the use of force is receded in the background becomes the key to our cooperation.
پاسگزار هستم. شکیلا ابراهیم خیل هستم از تلونیوز. جناب نخست وزیر با هیئت همراهیشان خوش آمدید میگم به افغانستان. پرسش نخستم از جناب نخست وزیر است. شما خواستید که به همکاری‌های خود در راستای تامین صلح به افغانستان همکاری کنند. چه تعهدی دارند در این راستا؟ چگونه همکاری خواهد کردند و خواستشان از حکومت تازه افغانستان چه است؟ و پرسشم برمیگرده به شما. ناامنی ها همچنان شما ادامه دارن، شما در جریان هستین، خصوصا در پایتخت در چند روز اخیر چه اقدامات جدی را شما به خاطر تامین امنیت روی دست خواهید گرفت و همچنان کابینه تازه را چه وقت اعلام خواهید کرد؟ سپاسگزار.
Well, thank you very much. Our commitment to Afghanistan will be set out really through our aid commitment, which I gave in my speech with 178 million pounds a year. Our commitment in terms of our support for Afghan national security forces, which we agreed with NATO partners at the Newport summit, and that the money has been set out for the years ahead, and it's vital because the Afghan national security forces need to be supported until they can become self-sustaining. There's the Officer Training Academy, which is something the former president of Afghanistan specifically asked Britain to do. We're proud to do, and I'm glad that it's up and running already. But there'll also be the support of a large diplomatic mission. There'll be the support of a large trade mission, the support of helping Afghanistan with its economic development, making sure that your extractive industries, which I think are a huge advantage for your country, are operated in the fairest way and the people can benefit the most from them. And also, I think the relationships of advice and friendship and comradeship over all these years between Britain and Afghanistan will continue. This is not a country we're going to leave. This is a country we want to have a very warm and strong relationship with in the years ahead.
دو روز گذشته مجلس امنیتی خاص سر امنیت کابل امرای وزیر داخله گرفت. امرای وزیر دفاع، امرای لوی رئیس امرای رئیس امنیت ملی زیادترین مقدار جلسات انجام داد. اولین اقدامی است که که پلیس شهر کابل باید غیر سیاسی شه و به وزیر داخله اختیار داده شده که پروگرام اصلاحات تمام نواحی کابل انجام بتن و در قدم اول کماندانای ناحیه‌ای کابل مطلق به اساس مسلکی تعیین کن. هر یک از مسئولین کابل یک گزارش مشخص به اساس معیارهای واضح برای اجرای وظایف خود خواهد داشت. دوم، از قربانیای پلیس، از قربانیای امنیت ملی، از قربانیای اراکین وزارت دفاع قدردانی میکنم. مسئله عمده هماهنگی در تمام سطوح و در این مرحله ادعات دوم جناب مرس مشاور امنیت ملی ما نقش هماهنگی را دارن، یک استراتژی واضح هماهنگی برای کابل و ولایت همجوارش است. تنها به شهر اکتفا نمی کنیم. دروازه کابل ولسوالی کابل نیست، ولایت عمده افغانستان است و به این اساس طرح استراتژی امنیت ملی ما که در چارچوب از او بخشای مختلف امنیتی به صورت بسیار واضح با مسئولیت و صلاحیت عملی شود مورد نظر است. نقطه آخری است که مسئولین امنیتی ما باید مسئولیت کاری داشته باشند، به اساس معیارهای شفاف انتخاب شوند و صلاحیت و مسئولیتشان واضح شود. از این جهت با عرصه ارگان امنیتی در بررسی‌های اساسی استیم تا به اساس تجارب گذشته و به اساس یک دیدگاه روشن هم کوتاه مدت، وسط مدت و دراز مدت ما بتانیم امنیت مردم خود را تامین کنیم. از قربانی‌های پلیس ملی مخصوصاً که هدف عملات تروریستی واقع شدن باز هم تشکر میکنیم. برای هر یک از شهیدا جنت برینه میخواهیم و برای زخمیا شفای عاجله. ما در محیط قرار داریم که خطر موجود است و خطرها را باید درک کنیم. برای هر حادثه که رخ میده فضل خداوند از ده ها حادثه جلوگیری شده. کاری را قوای امنیتی ما در شب انجام میتن مردم ما نمیبینن و امید است که بتانیم یک بحث اساسی را بین قوای امنیتی و مردم خود ایجاد کنیم تا اینا از مسایی از اینا بفهمن، از قربانیایشان و البته کمبودیایی را که موجود است با هم رفع کنیم. در قسمت کابینه بعداً برتان میگیم. تشکر. Yes, please.
BBC, I think.
Prime Minister, first of all, if the security situation here in Afghanistan deteriorates beyond 2014 to such a point that Britain's national interest is threatened, do you rule out ever resending British combat forces here? And, Mr. President, I have sat here for many years and I have been told that corruption will end, government will function, the police and the army will do their job, and yet so often those hopes have been dashed. Why should we think anything is different now?
Please.
We're not going to send combat troops back to Afghanistan because we have trained up an efficient and effective Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police Force in order to provide that security that Afghanistan needs, but also that we need in our country. And I think that's vital to understand that. It's been hard, long, patient work. But I think the focus that we brought, that of course other things matter. We want Afghan children to go to school. We want to have good health services. We want businesses to get their food and product to market. We want to help tackle the drugs trade. All of those things are important. But the focus I hope I've helped to bring as Prime Minister is that the Afghan National Security Forces and their build-up absolutely comes first and is the overriding priority. That's what we've been focused on, and that means that we wouldn't send combat troops back into Afghanistan. It won't be necessary because we have Afghan forces to do that. And Afghan forces will continue to train. Long after we've gone, this Afghan National Officer Training Academy, which the President himself has paid tribute to, is a vital part of the legacy that we leave here.
Well, thank you. I think your question is the question on the mind of every Afghan. That's why we have to deliver. Look, it's very simple. Either we deliver or we collapse. There is no second alternative. Look at our fiscal situation. Because of our failure to collect the revenue that we promised and budgeted, we are in a situation where we have to take urgent measures. We have a sense of urgency. Would you have expected us to sign the decree on Kabul Bank on our second day in office? The issue is simple. What aspects of corruption require political will? That's the first point. I've asked every ministry, every province, every organ of the government to list those actions that require political will on my part. Minister Daudzai said that Kabul district police officers have been appointed through political influence. I immediately authorized them to dismiss every single one of them and to appoint people that are professionals. This is one part. Second, we need to understand that corruption is deep roots. Our narcotics problem is not ours alone. It's a global problem. The criminal economy is 1.7 trillion a year. The largest haul of narcotics in Europe, despite all its immense capabilities, is not more than a ton. We destroy that with the special units that Britain so helpfully has helped us in a month. But we need to understand that global criminal networks require a different outlook to the economy. An economy that is overshadowed by criminality cannot provide the basis for a functioning state. We need to have a base for our taxpayers. One of my first meetings next to our security ministries has been with the private sector. I met with about 150 people who declared their combined wealth to be about $10 billion in that room. I'm committed to a dialogue with the Afghan private sector every other day for an hour. We want to approach issues through problem solving. Because you don't believe us, because the Afghan public is skeptical, we need to gain your trust. Come back in 6 months, and I hope that then you will have a lot more trust in our capacity to deliver. But it's absolutely the right question. I thank you, because every Afghan is thinking about the same thing. Is it going to be business as usual, or will we be able to bring a fundamental transformation to the lives of? Last question.
Hi, Sadimi from Al Jazeera. Sir, my first question from Prime Minister of England. Sir, I was in Kunar with Afghan army just last month. They were so disappointed that 13 years after foreign prison here, still Afghan army has a very, very weak air force, no artillery. They have a high morale, but not the right equipment. And because they don't have the right equipment, they are suffering and having heavy casualty. What went wrong there? Why is that? And what it needs to be done? And Mr. President, so what would be your policy different from past 13 years on peace talk with Taliban? And what is your message for Mullah Omar? Thank you.
First of all, I think the point you raise is an important one. The build-up of the Afghan army obviously started with literally the boots on the ground, training people, making sure that the Kandaks were properly staffed. It has then gone into training on higher and higher levels of equipment, including now helicopters and other air assets that are a vital part of a fully fledged army. And that work is still ongoing and more is being done. As a part of that, there's also the importance of casualty evacuation. Western forces have perhaps had the most advanced system of evacuating casualties and helping to save their lives of any armed forces anywhere in the history of the world. And I think it's quite right that Afghan forces expect to see improvements in the way their casualties can be evacuated. And my understanding is work to make sure that happens is not just underway, but improvements are now being seen. But in these remaining months before our combat troops go home, and indeed following that with the operation of resolute support from NATO members, that work will continue.
First of all, I want to thank the ulama of Afghanistan for the role that they played in making the election possible, for bringing women, some of whom had not left their houses in 20 or 30 years, to participate in the democratic process. We want to launch a national quest from every mosque in Afghanistan for peace. Second, every Afghan who has grievances, those grievances need to be understood, catalogued, and addressed. Because we have had shortcomings, and we need to acknowledge our shortcomings and deal with them. Third, most significantly, there is no military solution for bringing peace to Afghanistan. Prime Minister comes from a country which is one of the most stable on earth, but the question of Northern Ireland had to be tackled politically. And that requires the will to be able to sit down, discuss all issues that divide us. We will have the patience, the clarity of purpose, and the focus to acknowledge our political differences and come to a comprehensive set of mechanisms to resolve those. One reason for formation of the Government of National Unity is precisely to be able to have total unity of purpose on every major undertaking in addressing the key problems of this country. And the question of peace is one of the most significant. There's a choice for political opponents. Do they accept that they, like us, are first Afghans, or do they choose to be the instruments of destruction of this ancient and beautiful land? Anyone who chooses to be Afghan will be acknowledged to be an Afghan partner, because we must resolve our differences as Afghans politically. But those who are inclined to use our land as a battleground for nihilistic, rejectionist set of ideas that are focused on destruction will not be permitted to destroy the lives of our children. We must have clarity. Almighty God, Allah, has entrusted me with the responsibility to be answerable for the well-being of every child, every woman, every member of this country. And if those lives are threatened, we will use legitimate force and are not going to be shy about it. But equally, we are clear, the use of force is not the answer. We need reconciliation across the country, and we will enlist and deal with that. But more importantly, we need a lasting peace. 50% of peace agreements globally in the 1990s broke down within 5 years. We do not want a temporary peace. We want a lasting peace so that our people can live in genuine harmony, which is our way. In terms of mechanisms, we'll come with specifics, but the national consensus on peace, thank God, is here. We will act on it. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.